holy wisdom, holy word. Thanks be to God.
Thank you for that reading, Scott. It's good to be with each of you today. It is fitting and proper that we gather in this place and in this space. As we go throughout the year, this year we will be a part of the divine dance. And at this moment, we take stock of that and we live it out explicitly, reflectively, and joyfully. Would you please join me in a word of prayer? O God, may the words from my lips and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. Amen. So, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? Take a moment, take a breath, and do a little inventory. What fears have hold of you right now? The answer may be none. If so, that's good, that's fine. But if you do have fear hiding somewhere inside, that would be perfectly natural and perfectly understandable right now. Sometimes anxiety can be a mixture of fear and excitement. This is the beginning of a new school year, but it is a beginning like no other you've ever had. You're taking an academically and emotionally demanding curriculum, and you're doing it in the middle of a pandemic. At the same time, you're trying to process the fact that Jacob Blake was shot 7 times by a police officer in Wisconsin this week, in the back. And this has led to the loss of life last night. Political operatives have figured out that fear sells. So all of our media is full of images and speculation about horrors to come after the election. Sometimes we make up our own fear, but really, there is plenty of objective reality to keep us alert and watchful. I suppose that fear served an evolutionary purpose, keeping us from getting eaten by a larger predator at some point along the way. So maybe all the chill hominids went extinct, leaving us with this sense inside that something may be about to go wrong. Now, if you didn't come here today with fear, don't let me stir it in you. I'm not trying to do that. I just don't want us to leave without acknowledging that from time to time, all of us feel it deep inside. As leaders join together in God's redemptive and liberating work, you know that it is important that we regularly access and own our feelings, including fear. When we do, fear can serve as a window for empathy. Today, it offers us a window into our reading. Does your own familiarity with fear allow you to understand what Moses' mother might have been feeling? She gave birth to a baby boy at a time the king had ordered that baby boys be thrown into the Nile. But it wasn't all baby boys, just Israelite baby boys. Her son was targeted because of his nationality. After you have grown a baby inside of you and feel that overwhelming love that no parent can explain, can you imagine the terror of the threat to throw that child into the river? Does your familiarity with fear allow you to understand what the midwives may have been feeling? Have you ever been given orders to carry out that you know are wrong? Can you imagine the fear of defying power at the risk of your job or your life? Does your familiarity with fear allow you to understand what Moses' sister might have been feeling when she was sent on a mission to watch over a baby floating safely in a basket? A baby that by law should have been killed. Have you ever risked guilt by association to achieve a just outcome? Does your familiarity with fear allow you to understand the dread welling up inside of the princess as she tried to figure out what she was going to tell her dad? Have you ever worried what would happen if you exercised your power to defy a greater power? Finally, and here's the really tough one. In fact, this is the one I fear proposing to you the most. Does your familiarity with fear allow you to understand what the king might have felt facing foreign enemies who could find allies within his borders? Have we, as leaders, ever felt trepidation about not being able to protect those within our charge? When we allow fear to be a portal into the humanity of others, we realize that it is not the anxiety inside of us that separates us from other people. In fact, we all have this trait in common, or our ancestors would have been some tiger's lunch long ago. No, what separates us is our response to fear. There are life-giving responses to fear and death-dealing responses to fear. Clearly, the king chose a death-dealing response to fear. He responds with hate. It would be good if we could locate this response as some sort of historical artifact. But unfortunately, we know what it looks like and feels like to view voluntary and involuntary immigrants and descendants of immigrants within our borders with suspicion and hate. Just like Pharaoh, contemporary power has conspired to create a system of oppression. We do not have to agree with or relate to the system of oppression to dismantle it. But we do have to understand the very human emotion that caused it to be erected in the first place. If we other the powerful as indecipherable, then we have added bricks to the wall. It is only when we access our common humanity that we can truly relate to those who do awful things. This is difficult and in many ways distasteful. But just as Pharaoh's fear led him to hate, the women in the story today show us how to respond to fear in ways that subvert rather than reinforce a system of oppression. Moses' mother, when faced with the fear of losing her son, has hope. The midwives, when torn between God's will and the king's will, take heed. Moses' sister, when faced with the fear of being connected to a crime, gives help. The princess, claiming her own power in defiance of a greater power, provides a hindrance. As you go into this year, and as you go out into the world, you will find countless examples of people responding to fear with hate. This becomes a system of oppression when those people also have power over those whom they fear and hate. It is common to fear. And when we are honest with ourselves, we can recognize our own tendency to respond with hate. We can recognize our own temptation to use our power to make our fear go away by whatever means necessary. What the oppressed and oppressors have in common is humanity. We are not alien from one another. But what we need to make alien and unacceptable in ourselves, in others, and in society is hatefulness. So the next time someone or something you have nurtured and given life to is under threat, respond not with hate, but with hope. The next time you are directed to deviate from God's will, take heed. Don't hate. The next time when you are called upon to be an ally for someone who is under threat, don't shrink from those who hate. Come out from the reeds and stand up to them and offer help to those under threat. The next time you have the power to thwart evil, don't perpetuate the hate, hinder it. As Representative John Lewis admonished, make good trouble. But most importantly, when you feel your grip on power slipping, and you feel out of control and incapable of fulfilling your duties, take stock of what is really going on. Realize that what is going on is inside of you, not outside of you. In so doing, acknowledge your connectedness with those whom you serve. Respond not with hate, but with your own humanity. That they all may be one is not an aspiration. It is a reality. Just a reality we are reluctant to wake up to. The women in this passage give us a playbook for living into that reality, thereby subverting power and dismantling oppression. If it weren't for them, Israel may still be a province of Egypt today. The women in this story undermine those who would divide us from one another. We are in such a moment today, and we must follow their examples. Whether we are Israelite, Hebrew, or Egyptian, and whether we relate best to the mother, the sister, the midwives, the princess, or even the king, we must not hate. We must hope. We must heed. We must help. And we must hinder. When we do that together, we are defying death and choosing life, planting the seeds of courage to look power in the eye and to one day say, "Let my people go." Amen.
Thank you, President